let me make a few remarks regarding the importance of sociolinguistics. So from my viewpoint, why would sociolinguistics be so important? I've spent 30 years of my life doing sociolinguistics, so obviously I have an answer for that. But I would really also try to trigger you into thinking about an answer to that question. What's so important about sociolinguistics? Now here's my answer, or at least fragments of my answer. There's a very, very long explanation for it, but we can also be, let's say, a bit more concise and maybe give one or two things, that might be slightly unexpected for most people. Of course, the first reason is the intrinsic importance of the subject of sociolinguistics. So when I have to define sociolinguistics, I would always say that it is the science of what people do to language and what language does to people. And these people in sociolinguistics are always real and always concrete. All right, so they're not abstract imaginations of what people are, either individually or as a community. No. They're real people in a real world, all right, producing real language, okay? And in the process, being influenced by that language, being constrained, for instance, by that language, like when you don't speak English in an environment where you need English, right? But also being the agents of change in that language, right? And so in that sense, that's, for me, what sociolinguistics addresses is that sort of dynamic dialectic between language and human beings, how they both affect each other. Okay, and it is of course well known. I mean, so many people have noted it, that language is the thing, that in the animal world sets us apart as an exceptional item. Humans use very complex forms of language, and that also to some extent explains the complexity of our societies, all right, and also change within these complexities in society. So this is a first very, very important element of importance of sociolinguistics. We address a very major thing in our lives and in the existence of human beings. And if you try to think about it, you will notice that we communicate all the time. It's very hard to imagine situations in which we don't produce meaning, right? Even if we don't produce language, we produce meaning. A patient who is in like an intensive care unit, all right, and is not conscious, like he or she is asleep, right? Still produces meaning, eh? So still produces social signals that are very meaningful for others, and in that sense a form of language. But whenever we live in the presence of others, we communicate, and usually or largely and very importantly through language. So language is not just, the thing that sets us apart in the animal kingdom, all right, that makes us zoologically very interesting, but also it makes us social, right? And any great social thinker in the 20th century and even earlier, would emphasize it. The thing that makes a community, a society real is the fact that we communicate. So communication, and that's as language, all right, is the key to the notion of the social. So that would be my first argument in arguing for the importance of sociolinguistics. We are working on something very, very important, on a thing, that cannot be escaped whenever you look at humans, at their behavior, and at human societies, human communities. But here's another one, maybe a little bit less frequently noted or articulated. And it has to do with a theoretical viewpoint. And so underlying sociolinguistics, we have this notion of the social. Okay, so whenever we produce meaning, we need other people, right, to make the stuff meaningful. And so meaning is never an individual thing. We only produce meaning when that meaning is recognized as meaning by other people. All right, and again, that's one of the features of language. It is not made to be a private instrument. It is made in order to make us social. So in other words, to address others in attempts to be meaningful, to produce meaning. Okay, now theoretically, it's very important because it means that from within sociolinguistics, individualism as a theoretical position is impossible. There is no way in which you can explain language in society, right? So the way in which language operates in relation to human beings, as I said at the very beginning, there's no way you can explain that from within a methodological individualist viewpoint. No way, no way. Now, just to sketch that individual, or at least that individualist view, or say methodological position, it would basically argue that everything that we can observe in the way of human behavior is ultimately motivated by individual interests, motives, and features. All right, and so we need to investigate the individual if we want to understand society. That form of individualism has been very, very influential in social science, in the humanities, even since the 60s, let's say. All right, and it's articulated in a variety of sciences. Almost everywhere, and maybe one is familiar with one of the most radical articulations of that in a theory called a rational choice theory, right, in which the interests are not just individual but also rational. And so we make rational choices, and ultimately everything that happens in society needs to be brought down to rational choices. Good, all right. I mean, if you want to believe that, it's great. The only thing is you cannot explain language and communication. You cannot, right? Because when it comes to communication, we do everything, all right? And we do enormous efforts in order to make ourselves understandable by others and also to understand others, all right? And all of that has to proceed, through sharedness, through creating things that we share with others. So in other words, by denying individualism. If I use a word in a conversation with someone else that the other person does not understand, okay, I need to explain that word. And so in other words, it is a useless word for as long as it is individual, as long as it is individual. It only becomes a real word in the language the moment I make it a shared resource, the moment I make it social, all right? And so there is no way in which we can, do social linguistics and understand language in society from a viewpoint of individualism. And then if you think about the fact that most of what we do as humans is to communicate, okay? And then I would say there is no social science that you can reasonably do and realistically do when you rely on, the kind of individualism that I sketched. So the importance of social linguistics is not just the particular scope that it has and the particular technique, the sophisticated forms of analysis we also practice, but also theoretically at a very, very deep level. It's a very important move and a very important choice you make, and a choice that basically deserves more prominence, more articulation as well, and more explanation. Basically, by us, we should explain that more and more frequently, to other people, because I think it's a very important element for debate. Thank you very much.